with that mighty cake, bitch, that mighty Drake. Right now, Fox 5 is up now. You bound to die. I just woke up, got bands today. What got rest today? Pulling up with that mighty cake.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video. Today we have another tier list, and this is going to be an SEC tier list ranking, basically trying to put my opinion on and rank where I think these SEC teams are going to lie going into the 2024 season, how they're going to finish at the end of the year. Mainly this is just, it's my opinion. I do think this is how it's going to go, but we're going to do the SEC. We're also going to do all the other Power 4 conferences too. This is going to be a little series. I'm also going to do the NFL as well. So it's almost that time of year again. It's almost the best time of year, football season. Down here in the South, it's like a national holiday when football season comes back around. So going to be ranking the hometown conference of the SEC. As you can see, we got the tier rankings listed out. We have natty contender, we have good, mid, bad, and no disrespect to this conference because I almost played in this conference, but a SoCon doormat, meaning in the Southern Conference, which is an FCS conference for those of you who don't know, they probably wouldn't do too well there either. So this is all opinions. Some of this, the ranking, especially the bottom one, it is a joke, kinda, but we're just gonna go ahead and get into it. No more delay. Let's go ahead. So we got the University of Kentucky. Man, Kentucky, they have honestly impressed me over the past few years because they were solely known as just a basketball school. And I know that can, because I played high school football at a basketball school. So I know the feeling of the amount of pressure, and it just sucks when, especially in the South, where football is king, football is dominant, the dominant sport, and everybody's paying attention to the basketball team. Nobody really cares about you. But seeing them on the come up over the past couple years has been a really great thing to see. They're not solely a basketball school anymore. They still are a basketball school. Do not get me wrong. But that's not all they're good at anymore. So I'm glad to see Kentucky improve. However, 2024, I think they're going to be mid this year. I just don't see Kentucky necessarily being, when you look at all the other teams in the conference, I think they're going to be pretty mid in comparison. Because even if you do have high expectations for Kentucky, I just think they're just going to lose, especially with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, man. It's like, I just think that, just that extra addition, that's going to kind of cause them to falter. They're going to lose, a game or two more than they have done previously or even last season. So I'm going to put them in the midsection. Newcomer, Oklahoma, already up. Brent Venables is a really good coach, especially seeing what he did at Clemson as a defensive coordinator down there. Man, Oklahoma football, they had been kind of going in a downhill a little bit, but with them coming to the SEC, with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback and everything, I think they're going to be decent. I think they're going to be this could be a good team, but I just don't know, that defense, because you're coming from the Big 12 where, yes, Dylan Gabriel looked good because he was in the Big 12. I also said the same thing in that Will Howard video I made some time ago. Be sure to check that out. When you're going from the Big 12, playing Big 12 competition into the SEC, where especially defenses are so much better than Oklahoma's main stable, and it's been their main stable for years and years, is that offense. I think they're just going to finish pretty mid because they weren't very great going into, they weren't very great last year in the Big 12. So I'm going to put them in the midsection. I am going to piss y'all off with this video. So, yeah. South Carolina, the only bright spot that South Carolina really had is gone now, is Spencer Rattler. I don't have a lot of faith in South Carolina, honestly. I think they're gonna be pretty bad this year. I think they are. Since Spurrier left, man, it's just been kind of a downhill kind of thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have upset some teams like Georgia, beat Clemson, within like recent memory. So I don't know. I don't see a lot with the South Carolina team. I don't think they're gonna be very good going into 2024. Mississippi State. Oh man, the homie Wick. He's not going like this one. If you know about Wick, he is part of the channel here. Be sure to check out some of the podcast videos too, because he's definitely in those. Basically, the life of the party there. But with Mississippi State, doormat. I think they're gonna be pretty bad. I probably wouldn't put them at yeah, Mississippi State. Nah, I'll put them at bad. It's just not a good, RIP Mike Leach, but it's just not necessarily that program hasn't been strong since Dakota Prescott was there. So ever since Dak left, like they had that 1 year, they just randomly became the number one team in the country, and it has been a downhill slide for them. So I think bad is probably the best place to put them. And I know I made a lot of references to the past, and I know it's a going into 2024 video, but even going into 2024, there's not much I like with Mississippi State, especially in this conference where teams will just happily beat the shit out of you and keep it pushing. Yeah, they're just, they're a bad team in a really good conference, so it is going to be a rough sledding for them. Texas A&M, bad as well. This is not a good program. Jimbo Fisher did not do a great job at all with Texas A&M. Buying recruits, they're like the New York Yankees of college football, man. I mean, just trying to buy championships, and it hasn't worked for the Yankees lately, and is not working for Texas A&M in football. So, now do not get me wrong. I know the Yankees are the best team in MLB right now, but go Braves, as we have won the series against them. But regardless of that, Texas A&M, they're just not a good program. Recruiting hasn't been well. I mean, the recruiting has been well, but they just can't develop talent over there. All those 5 stars, all those 4 stars, and can't develop anybody at all over there. Can't mold them into a good football team. I mean, it's an absolute embarrassment over there, man. Like, you expect so much better out of a program like Texas A&M, but relegating them back to the Big 12 would not be a bad idea. The Texas Longhorns, oh man. A team that made the college football playoff last year, beat Alabama, and this is all while they were still in the Big 12. This was probably, the closest thing to an SEC team that was not in the SEC. Texas football, I have a lot of good things to say about them, especially over the past year or so. They're playing really good football, and I know I've made my jokes in the past about the whole Texas is back thing. They might be back, and Quinn Ewers at quarterback, definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Some have him as the number 1 quarterback in the country. He's definitely top 2, top 3. In my opinion, that is a good football team. They play a good style. They play a good brand of football offensively. Defense is good. Would love to see them become better defensively, but they have played well on the defensive side of the football, which is a rarity, something you haven't seen out of Texas in years. And just the fact that they're playing really good football, offensively, defensively, the whole 9. Team that was in the playoff last year. Now here's the thing though, you're going through an SEC schedule now, so I'm gonna put them in the good section. you're going into the SEC. You know, you're not just gonna beat the piss out of everybody, like you did in the Big 12, where nobody, you know, if you make a couple tackles, you know, you're obviously gonna play good offense. But if you make a couple tackles more than the other team, you're automatically gonna win the football game because the defenses are so bad over there. And yes, do not get me wrong, they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I'm 100% aware of that, and almost beat Alabama the year before too. So I know how really should have beat Alabama the year before. But yes, I am aware of how good Texas is. It's just when you start going through the grind of an SEC schedule and you're not playing one or two SEC teams a year. Now you're playing, you know, 8, 9, you know, different teams. It can become grueling, and it's just the best conference in football. So while I would love to put them in the natty contender category, I just can't put them there yet until I really see how they really go through the SEC grind. I just think because they're going through the Southeastern Conference schedule, I feel like eventually it's going to wear on them, and they're going to lose a game or two that they really shouldn't lose. Not to mention, you know, they're playing Georgia this year. They're still going to be, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, honestly. I really have to look at Texas' schedule to make sure, but I do know that they do play Georgia. And hey, what can I say? You know, you're playing one of the best teams in the past like 5 years, 2 national championships back to back not too long ago. That's the thing, man. You got a grueling schedule ahead of you. So Tennessee, okay, I guess I owe you sort of an explanation as far as why I put Vanderbilt in the SoCon doormat. I really don't, but Vanderbilt's one of them teams where they're in the SEC to keep the conference GPA up. It's an academic first school. Nothing wrong with that. But as far as like athletics, being in the SEC, I mean, for the longest time, Vanderbilt wasn't good at anything until they became good at baseball about 10 years ago. About 10, 15 years ago, when Vanderbilt became really good at baseball. Man, but unfortunately, this isn't a baseball video. So when we're talking about football, this is probably one of the worst teams to ever be in the SEC over the past 100 years. For those of you who do know, my father played at Georgia back in the day, and Vanderbilt was bad even, 40 years ago. So they used to just happily run slap ass through Vanderbilt like there was no tomorrow. And they're just the doormat of the conference. They're just not very good. SoCon, maybe. Like, one of their only wins last year was Hawaii. And for some reason, people got on the Vanderbilt hype train after that one game against Hawaii. And people were like, okay, watch out for Vanderbilt. Watch out. They might do something. No. They've had some good games in recent memory. Well, I'm not even going to say recent memory. I mean, like, over the past 10 years. They picked up a couple wins against Georgia. I believe one in, like, 2013, 2014. Another in Kirby's first year. So, yeah, man. This is... I wouldn't be shocked if, like, you took Furman and put him against Vanderbilt. I would not be shocked if Furman beat him by like a couple touchdowns. I would not be shocked. But yeah, not a good program as far as football goes. The Tennessee Volunteers, man, they made some noise over the past couple years. This was another team that used to be a doormat that went from the Peyton Manning, T. Martin years and fell off, like tremendously fell off, and then rose back up to prominence. And I mean, Josh Heupel over there, he's putting together a great offense. Defense can use some work though. They do give up some points unnecessarily. Tennessee is a good football team. Now, are they a natty contender? Because there's been a lot of hype circling around the Tennessee Volunteers. Is this a natty contending football team? No. I mean, this is, they're going to be okay. They're going to be decent, but they might even be mid. They might be mid because of the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. They were like right at the fridge. They were kind of knocking on the door. And then you have like a miscellaneous team like a Missouri or Ole Miss kind of sneak in above them and kind of shield them away from, knocking on that natty contender door. And yeah, they're good, but as far as like becoming a natty contender and becoming, especially with the addition of Texas, who is a good solid football program, I just don't see it. I don't see them just as a natty contender. Barely see them as good. Like, this team might be mid. Arkansas Razorbacks. I mean, this was a shit show last season. And a team with talent. Like, this was a team that had a lot of talent last season. Now you got to fire your offensive coordinator because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to just tell this little quick story about the Arkansas offensive coordinator from last year. Don't necessarily remember his name off the top of my head right now. But this guy was so bad that a student at the University of Arkansas emailed him personally and was like basically questioning him like, what are you doing? I can call better plays than that. What you're doing isn't making sense. And the offensive coordinator for Arkansas actually responded, and he was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Give me examples, stuff like that. So the student gives him examples. For one of the biggest ones was the quarterback sneak play. Like, he runs a dive when he has KJ Jefferson, who is a 250-pound quarterback. He does run the quarterback sneak for the first down. It gets stopped, becomes a turnover. Now granted, he's already doing a shit job as a OC anyway, but this is just one of the highlight plays. Then the OC is like, well, against Gap's defense, you got to be kidding me. And the student here makes a good point, because football isn't about X's and O's on paper. That only does so much, but you're also dealing with human beings on a football field. So the student goes on to say, yeah, it is Gap's defense, but even if you know what's coming, it's still hard to stop a 250-pound quarterback from getting a yard. 6'5", 250. It's hard to stop somebody that big from getting a yard, whether you know it's coming or not. With stuff like this, they didn't even have like common sense over there. And it's just a downhill program. And they started kind of, rising up a little bit, and now it's all for naught. It's just disgraceful program over there. So they're bad. Arkansas. The University of Florida, they're so unpredictable, man. Like, this is a program that can be good, and it's like as soon as you think they're gonna be good, they start, trending in the wrong direction. I don't think they're gonna recover from Marco Wilson throwing that shoe for a while. So I'll put him at mid to be nice, but yeah, overall it's just not. They're doing a lot of wrong over there. It's like you think they're gonna be bad, they win a couple games that they probably shouldn't win, and then as soon as you think they're gonna be good, they lose a couple games they probably shouldn't lose. So, man, Missouri, they're good. That is a good team right there. They beat Ohio State in that bowl game. Now here y'all go with the Ohio State opted out guys. So did Missouri. But what I saw from Missouri was that these guys played hard. They played, they had a good season last year. They almost, they played Georgia pretty well. This right here, that like what Eli Drinkwitz is doing over there, they're becoming a pretty talented football team, and they could potentially, I think they could probably end up taking over that like good tier of the SEC. Like, I don't think they're gonna be natty contenders anytime soon. Actually, I feel like with like the right season and a couple things going their way, I feel like they can end up not only making the playoff, but winning, a a playoff game or two to get them in that natty contender position. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I feel like they can make some noise. And you know what? I think I'm going to change my Texas decision and put them at natty contender, because now, like, I also have to remember that it's a 12-team playoff now. So I feel like even if Texas loses a couple games this year and they make the playoff, with the amount of with the teams that have to make it in, the amount of teams that are going to make it in, I just don't see, I don't see 10 teams that make the playoff beating Texas. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see them beating them head to head on the field. So I'm actually going to put them in natty contender. Texas, you're welcome. Georgia Bulldogs going into 2024. Had a disappointing 2023 season for their standards. I am a Georgia fan, so, as you already know if you've seen some other videos, the thing with Georgia is that they did not play very well last year. And one of the things they're missing defensively, especially against the run, like the defense wasn't as good against the run as it was in years past. They just, for the 3-4 defense that Georgia likes to run, they don't really have that big D tackle, that big defensive tackle that just, dominates linemen, just takes up a lot of space and really, gives running backs and the run game no choice but to try to bounce it outside, and then have them fast linebackers and DBs come down and knock the shit out of people. That was Georgia's MO in 2021 and 2022 with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. I just don't really see that with Georgia anymore. Like, they don't have that really big D tackle that just, and people underestimate how impactful that was for that Georgia defense. Last year in 2023, teams, started to kind of exploit that. You have a lighter guy playing defensive tackle, and it was kind of like, okay, if we can move him over a little bit, we can gash him up the middle. Prime example, Tennessee, first play of the game, guys got in the wrong gaps, and it was first play of the game, like 80 yards to the crib. Took, just moment. Now, granted, we know how that game ended. All right. We know how that game ended. It was an utter Georgia ass whipping after that. But they still don't have it. But now, Michael Williams, like, coming off the edge as a pass rusher, they have to get back to getting quarterbacks on the ground, because that's what got them beat against Alabama, among other things, too. You got to get, especially quarterbacks that can run, you got to get their asses on the ground, especially when you're playing Jalen Milroe in the regular season. You're playing even guys like Quinn Ewers, who isn't, like, they're not the most mobile, but if you give them enough time, they're going to tear your defense to fucking shreds. They're just good enough to do that. So, the thing with Georgia now is, like, their offense is so good now to where, they can, even if the defense does screw up, they're dropping 40 on you. Carson Beck, then now you have a running back room now. It's almost like old school Georgia football again, where we can just, kind of dink and dunk our way down the field, quarterback those for 200-300 yards, and then fourth quarter comes, them big 340-pound linemen start leaning on you, putting that weight on you, and then, they just literally just run the clock down, kick, just straight kill you throughout the end of the game, fourth quarter. And I think that's how Georgia's going to win a lot of games. I put them in natty contender simply because I don't think there's a single team besides Alabama. And and I'll get to why I say Alabama in a second. But there's not a single team besides Alabama and maybe Ohio State that's going to stop them from winning the national championship this year. And a third team, that team also being Georgia, stopping themselves from winning a national championship. But definitely natty contender. I think they're going to win it all in 2023, not because I'm a fan, but because of actual football logic and actual football knowledge. I think they're going to win it. So there's that. The Ole Miss Rebels. this is the team that kind of pisses me off, right? And people look at this team as like, okay, this is the team that's going to stop Georgia from winning the national championship and all that. They're going to be the team that stops. They're going to be the next team of the SEC. Now that Kalen DeBoer's in at Alabama, now that Nick Saban's gone, people are like Ole Miss. They're going to be the next team to take Alabama's spot, and it's going to be Georgia and Ole Miss running the SEC, and that's just simply not the case. The way Georgia they really smack Ole Miss around. They did last year, and I don't think they're even on the same level as Georgia yet. They're good, but they're not natty contender good. I think Texas is gonna put a beating on them a little bit too. So, yeah. LSU. This is the most interesting one, in my opinion. All right, this might be the most interesting one. LSU's defense was one of the worst I've seen in a long time. These guys couldn't keep... this was a Big 12 defense playing in the SEC. They couldn't get a single soul on the ground. Now, with that being said, they had Jaden Daniels last year, the Heisman winner, at quarterback. He's gone now. Now you got Grant Nussmeier, and for a team like Georgia, who I saw destroy LSU in that SEC championship game, Grant Nussmeier played very well. That is a good quarterback, and a lot of people don't know it. He is a good quarterback, and mark my words, I think Grant Nussmeier, or whatever his first name is, I know it's Nussmeier, it might be Grant. I don't fucking know. I gotta actually look back into it. But Nussmeier, I think he's gonna be a top 5. You know what? He's gonna be a top 10 quarterback in the nation when it's all said and done. You heard it here first. He's gonna be a top 10 quarterback in the country when it's all said and done. That's just my opinion, but maybe even better. I think he might even be better than that. So Nussmeier and LSU, I'm gonna put them in the midsection, mainly because like Jaden Daniels had Jaden Daniels, he had a way of continuing drives with his legs that Nussmeier he just doesn't quite have that. But that defense, because he kept that terrible defense off the field by lengthening drives, keeping drives going. And it was just another added element to that LSU offense. You don't quite have that with Nussmeier. It's like, all arm, very little running. And you're obviously, your running back room, in my opinion, isn't that great either. So it's not like, you can't do the old, Hudson Mason, turn around, hand the ball to Todd Gurley and get the hell out the way kind of deal, and then let your half-ass defense, try to stop some people. You can't even do that with LSU. So I think they're going to be mid. I unfortunately do. Nussmeier is going to be overshadowed by the fact that LSU not only doesn't make the playoff, but that defense is going to be so bad to where it's going to keep LSU out of a lot of football games. So, mid there, Auburn. The Auburn Tigers. This might be a SoCon doormat. What the hell do y'all have going on over there? I mean, this is not a good football team in the slightest. All right. So, well, I'll give them the slightest. They're okay in the slightest because they hung in with Alabama last year. Granted, it was one of the worst Alabama teams in a while, but you had them on the ropes. In the Iron Bowl, the most important rivalry game, the most important game on your schedule. All right, if you don't know about the Iron Bowl rivalry, then you're missing out because it is a crazy-ass rivalry. But regardless of that, all you needed was one play. Think about this for a second, right? Those of you who've played football before, it's pretty hard to just give up 31 yards just out the ass, right? Even if you have a mid, defense, maybe even a bad defense, it's pretty hard to just, give up 31 yards, right? This team had one play. All you needed was one play and don't give up 31 yards, right? They obviously have to throw the football, and they have to throw the football, right? The hell are y'all doing? So, if y'all remember that last play, Milroe, Alabama, they throw the football, 4th and 31. They need this play to win the game. And I don't know if it was the last play of the game or not. I really don't remember if it was that deep, but one of the last plays of the game, Milroe, he does throw a dime, right? It gets caught in the end zone, and Alabama wins the football game eventually. If you look at that play, Auburn rushed 2 people and had 9 in coverage. You only have 5 eligible receivers, so it's 9 on 5, which is unnecessary because now you have an additional guy who he's just fucking around in the way. You have him in coverage, but he's really just fucking around in the way, just confusing people. You're trying to pass off here, pass off guys there, and you only have 2 people rushing, so it's 5 on 2 as far as linemen and pass rushers go. If you send 1 or 2 more people after Milroe, because as we all know with Jalen Milroe, especially in 2023, if he feels the slightest bit of pressure, he's going to try to take off and run. If he tries to run, you can stop that. And if you can't stop that, your ass needs to be relegated to, I don't know, Division III at that point. But there was no intelligence by the defensive coordinator by rushing 2 and having 9 in coverage, because that's not going to do anything but cause confusion, which it did. Milroe had like the amount of time it would take for him to get a degree, the amount of time it would take the average college student to get a degree, or hell, not even a degree, pay off student loans. That's how long he had in the fucking pocket. All right, he had forever in the pocket. So he just, standing there looking, moving around a little bit. He just beams the ball in the back of the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown. Auburn loses the game. Not to mention, that's the Iron Bowl now. These same motherfuckers lost to New Mexico State at home. They lost to New Mexico State at home. They lost to New Mexico State at home by 21 points. Maybe even more than that. They got beat by 3 touchdowns by New Mexico State, a team in, I think it's the Mountain West, or Conference USA Mountain West, one of them shits, all right? A team in a mid-tier group of 5 conference was mid-tier in that mid-tier group of 5 conference, barely made a fucking bowl game, and you got blown out, got bent over at home in front of your home fans at Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is one of the toughest places to play in. Get that fucking bullshit out of your head now, because y'all starting to piss me off with that too. Oh, Jordan-Hare this, Jordan-Hare that, Jordan-Hare this. Y'all ain't shit over there. You just lost to the wrong, losing to the Texas A&M Aggies is bad enough, but that's one thing. The New Mexico State Aggies, and then I remember seeing a post lately, talking about how, they were ranking the teams in Alabama, and Auburn fans got upset because people put Jacksonville State ahead of Auburn. And people are like, how y'all gonna put an FCS team over us? That's fucked up. That's bullshit. We're not that bad. Yes, y'all are. Okay, y'all are that bad at the game of football. Let us tell you that. Y'all are that bad. And losing to New Mexico State by 21. I get it. Teams get upset. All right, it shouldn't happen, but it does. You got upset. You did. Getting upset, losing by a touchdown or 2, that's not very good. Even like Appalachian State, Michigan, the biggest upset of all time. Appalachian State didn't beat Michigan by 30 points now. If I'm not mistaken, they beat, it was under a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. But, they barely beat Michigan. Still an upset. Great upset, by the way. But you got beat by 21 points. Now, Jacksonville State a team that beat Florida State in I think it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken. 2020, 2021. It wasn't that long ago. They went to Tallahassee and beat Florida State on their home field, right? Upset, right? You're telling me now that team who was FCS back then, they're moving up to FBS, which means they get more scholarships, which means they can bring in, better players, more better players, and you think that y'all think that Jacksonville State wouldn't beat Auburn? I'm being dead serious when I say Jacksonville State would step on the field with Auburn and they would probably beat them. It wouldn't be a blowout, but Jacksonville State is 100% better than Auburn. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You're not that good at football. I hate to break it to you. Then I saw the spring game too. I saw the Auburn spring game. Did not look good there too. Then I looked at Auburn's schedule and I was like, 4-8 is your ceiling. 4-8 is your ceiling. I really hope y'all prove me wrong because, you know, football is a lot better when Auburn's good. You know, it's been very few times where that's been the case, but when Auburn is good, college football is a lot better. So I hope y'all do prove me wrong there. Your ceiling is like 4-8. I'll give you 5-7 to be nice. I can see y'all going 2-10. You're not good at football, but anyway, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Sorry about that rant there. I had to get that off my chest because it's fucking ridiculous what's going on over there. Alabama. All right, here's the big one. This is a good football team, as we already know. They made the playoff. Bad play calling literally kept them out of the national championship game. And in my opinion, if Alabama wins that game against Michigan, Bama beats Washington 100%. They definitely beat Washington. But Alabama, you know, that's Nick Saban's final year. Kalen DeBoer coming over from Washington to take over Nick Saban's head coaching spot. I mean, here's the thing with a new coach. It's a lot of things you got to get used to. You're so used to playing one way, and now here comes somebody else coming in charge, and you have to, you know, he's going to change some shit up over there. You know, it's a new staff. It's him. It's a new head coach. They're going to change some stuff up. You got to do a lot of stuff that you're not used to. So with a new coach comes a lot of new stuff, and you still got to play Georgia. You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think they play Texas as well too. Now, I don't think Alabama is going to be as good this season, especially with a Pac-12 coach coming in to take over, because they do play a different brand of football out there, and it's not very good. Now, what he did at Washington, he did an amazing job at Washington. Do not get me wrong, I'm taking no credit away from that, but you're in the SEC now. So, in my opinion, I think Alabama, they're still going to be natty contenders because the Alabama brand of football, it was like, you know, going from Bear Bryant to, you know, they had a down year with some other coach. You got to look into who that was. Gene Stallings wins a national championship. And then, you know, eventually, you know, some years later, Nick Saban takes over and Bama's right back on the same level they were when Bear Bryant was there. So, you know, just the traditional aspect of Alabama football, the fans, the boosters in Tuscaloosa, they're just not going to allow you to bullshit around over there. So I feel like just with the tradition that goes on with the, you know, not only the football team, but the people who support the football team, they're just not going to allow Bama to slide too much. I don't think they're going to be as good. I don't think they're going to win the national championship next year, but they definitely are going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to win a playoff game too. So maybe even two. So that's my tier list. This is my opinion on how I think these SEC teams are going to do going into 2024. Y'all be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I don't mind any type of comments. Tell your truth. Even if you don't like it, tell the truth. I have no problem. Trust me, I can take it. I can handle it. I'm not soft. Go ahead, share your opinion at the bottom, and be sure to subscribe. Check out some of the podcast episodes. We just dropped a recent one. Finally got a new mic, so these videos can finally stop sounding like shit. So appreciate y'all support, and I'll catch y'all for the next one.
Then the aftermath, I'm always gonna get that text asking me what we is. Like, baby, go get some rest, cause darling, I don't wish you well. When you ain't with me, I need you sick to your stomach, it can't stand on your feet. I know it's wrong, but I just gotta be honest.